Hims just lost $92 million in a single quarter. And last week, instead of cutting costs, they announced 8 new health brand partnerships. Either this is the most deliberate pivot in telehealth history or the most expensive distraction from a business model in trouble. This video looks at what they actually built, what the numbers say, and where the real uncertainty sits. To understand why last week matters, you need a brief read on what Hims was. The original growth engine was compounded semaglutide, a cheaper, legally produced version of the molecule in Ozempic and Wegovy, made possible by an FDA-declared drug shortage. That business ran at gross margins of 70 to 80%. The FDA removed semaglutide from its shortage list in February 2025. Hims had until early 2026 to wind down its compounding operation. The compounded tablet was pulled in February 2026, and the formal transition to branded Wegovy completed in March. What replaced it was a distribution arrangement with Novo Nordisk, selling brand name Wegovy and Ozempic at commission margins of 10 to 20%. The income statement felt that immediately. Q1 2026 gross margin dropped from 73% to 65%. Net income swung from a nearly $50 million profit a year ago to a $92 million loss. That is the hole the platform strategy needs to fill, and last week is the clearest signal yet of how they intend to fill it. Last week, Hims announced 8 new health brand partnerships in a single announcement, bringing their total ecosystem to 10 brands across 5 health categories: metabolic monitoring, nutrition, women's health, fitness, and longevity. 3 of them are worth pausing on specifically. Dexcom Stelo, the first FDA-cleared over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor designed for adults who are not on insulin. Flow Health, the world's largest period tracking app with 75 million monthly active users, and Natural Cycles, the only FDA-cleared digital contraception app in the United States. The rest, nutrition delivery, fitness programs, strength training, and longevity movement, round out the picture. But those 3 tell you the direction Hims is pointing. Now the question is what this actually means, because announcing partnerships is one thing, the strategic logic behind this specific set of partners is another. Before going deeper on the partnerships, something else happened last week that deserves a standalone moment. Canada just became the first G7 country to approve a generic version of semaglutide, the molecule in Ozempic and Wegovy. Hims launched immediately. Price: $149 Canadian a month. Brand name Ozempic in Canada, up to $400. The COO confirmed the plan is to replicate this model across all eucalyptus markets. Eucalyptus is the Australian telehealth company Hims acquired for $1.15 billion, including Australia, the UK, and Germany. The compounding window that closed in the US is still open internationally, and Hims just proved they will move the moment it opens. That matters because the international opportunity is not small. The eucalyptus markets collectively cover tens of millions of potential subscribers in English-speaking countries with comparable obesity rates and similar out-of-pocket willingness to pay. If generic semaglutide approvals follow in Australia and the UK, Hims has distribution infrastructure already in place through the acquisition. The US is the problem. Internationally, the original model is still running.
Start with the Dexcom edition. This is not a brand play. Dexcom Stelo is an FDA-cleared continuous glucose monitor that tracks blood sugar in real time, cleared for adults who are not on insulin. That makes it designed exactly for the Hims subscriber base on weight loss medications. GLP-1 drugs change how your body processes glucose. Someone on semaglutide who adds a continuous glucose monitor can now see in real time how their meals, their workouts, and their dosing affect their blood sugar throughout the day. That is a fundamentally different kind of engagement with the platform than receiving a monthly prescription refill. And every reading from that monitor is a data point inside the HIMSS ecosystem. That is the thread that connects all 10 partners in the ecosystem: labs, blood results, Dexcom glucose readings, MyFitnessPal nutrition logs, iFit workout data. These are not lifestyle perks, they are data streams. And the more data streams that sit inside one platform, attached to one subscriber record, the more that platform starts to look like something a person cannot easily walk away from. Most healthcare platforms retain subscribers with discounts or habit. What HIMSS is attempting to build is a different kind of retention: accumulated health history. 2 years of tracked biomarkers, glucose trends, metabolic data. If you cancel, you do not just lose access to a prescription service, you reset years of personalized health data. That is a switching cost that compounds over time, not a loyalty program. CEO Andrew Dudum has described this as a personal health operating system. Think of it this way. Imagine your doctor has 3 years of your blood test results, your glucose readings, your medication history, and your body's response to every dosage change. You would not switch to a new provider just to save $30 a month, because starting over means losing all of that. That is the switching cost HIMSS is trying to build. Whether that vision translates into actual retention is the core question the business has not yet answered with data. And if it works, the revenue math changes too. A subscriber on a prescription plan generates roughly $80 a month. A subscriber who also tracks labs, glucose, and fitness inside the same platform has reasons to add services, upgrade plans, and stay longer. The revenue per subscriber figure, which dipped from $84 to $80 in Q1, is the number that will tell us whether the ecosystem is converting into actual spending or just into a more elaborate waiting room. The women's health editions deserve specific attention because they are not obvious for a company historically known as a men's telehealth brand. HIMSS built its identity on hair loss and ED. Hers existed as a secondary brand but was never the lead story. Last week's editions changed that framing. Natural Cycles and Flow Health are not peripheral health apps. Natural Cycles is the only app in the U.S. with FDA certification as a contraception method. Flow Health has 75 million monthly active users globally. These are category-defining products in women's reproductive health. Adding both in a single announcement signals something deliberate. HIMSS is going after the female subscriber base at a different scale than hers alone has managed. Whether the HIMSS brand is too male-coded to make that work is a fair question, but the partners they chose are credible ones. Now, the honest counterweight, because last week's moves do not exist in isolation. HIMSS came into last week off the back of their worst quarterly result in recent memory. The margin collapse was structural. Compounding ran at 70 to 80% gross margins. Distributing branded Wegovy earns 10 to 20%. When that switch happened, the income statement felt it immediately, and the hole has not been filled. The harder problem is forward-looking. Here is the retention problem in plain terms. GLP-1 drugs like Wegovy work, but only while you take them. Stop taking them and the weight tends to come back. That is why most people who start on these drugs intend to stay on them long-term, but the data shows they do not. Across the entire market, fewer than half of the people who start on branded Wegovy are still taking it after 6 months. HIMSS charges $39 in the first month as a hook, then steps up to $149 from month 2 onward. Bank of America looked at those numbers and estimated that the price jump, combined with the number of people who drop off, creates an $85 million hole in revenue by the fourth quarter.
And to hit full-year revenue guidance, HIMSS needs to add new subscribers at a rate equivalent to capturing nearly half of every new oral Wegovy patient paying out of pocket with no insurance coverage in America. Every quarter, for 3 straight quarters. That is a high bar. So the question last week's announcements raise is a specific one. Can 8 new health brand partnerships change the retention dynamic? Can a subscriber who has Dexcom glucose data, labs biomarker history, and a personalized fitness plan be retained at a meaningfully higher rate than one who is just on a prescription plan? That is genuinely unknown right now. The partnerships were just announced. The data does not exist yet.
The stock currently trades at 1.7 times forward sales. That is below the sector average of 2.1 times and well below HIMSS' own 2-year median of 3 times. At 3 times, the stock would be at roughly $45, almost double today's price. The gap between current valuation and historical median is entirely explained by one question. Does the platform transition work, or does revenue stall while the company spends its way into the story? The market is withholding judgment. That is a reasonable position. Thesis is not the same as evidence, and the evidence will only start arriving in August. So where does this leave the overall picture? The platform transition is real. The infrastructure being built is substantive. The near-term financial pressure is also real, and the execution bar is high. Both things are true simultaneously, and that tension is exactly why the stock trades at 1.7 times forward sales instead of its 2-year median of 3 times. The first real test is Q2 earnings in August, with revenue guidance at $680 to $700 million. If they hit it, the Wegovy retention problem is more manageable than the bear case suggests. If they miss, the guidance revision becomes the dominant story. 3 numbers to watch inside that report. First, Q2 revenue. Does the Wegovy transition hold at the guided range? Second, a lab's subscriber count, which HIMSS has never disclosed. The first number will tell us whether the data platform thesis is gaining commercial traction or is still just a story told on earnings calls. Third, revenue per subscriber. It dipped from $84 to $80 in Q1. If the ecosystem is working, if Dexcom data and labs biomarkers and fitness tracking are keeping subscribers engaged and spending, that number climbs back. If it keeps falling, the partnerships are not converting into retention. If I had to pick a side, the compounding pharmacy era is over, and what HIMSS is building in its place looks more real than the current valuation gives it credit for. 8 new partnerships in a week, a total ecosystem at 10 brands, an international foothold through eucalyptus in markets where compounding is still legal. This is not the behavior of a company that thinks the story is finished. But building something real and executing well enough to survive the transition are 2 different things. August will start to answer which one this is. What do you think? Is HIMSS building something durable or buying time? Drop it in the comments. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. All investments carry risk. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions.